Be 20 minutes or less.
Is 20 minutes early.
No, let's do 20 minutes or less.
Keep the whole meeting to 20 minutes, I was be saying.
Or less.
Or less.
That would really be breaking a lot of records.
Well, we have a consent agenda, right?
Yeah.
Remember the rule, man. You can't make a motion to adjourn until the meeting starts.
So we say the pledge, then you get one.
And then I'm gonna keep them out there.
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Valley,
present.
Painter,
Here.
Cummings,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Sterling Bogus.
Present. All right, I am going to down to public comment. Anybody who has public comment, make sure you sign in at the back and then stand up and state your name and your address. I also want to welcome, I know we've got a couple of observers here that I invited, so I'm going to up here too. So, but if you want something to say, go ahead and sign in at the back too. So, anyway, who's first?
I guess I'll go first. My name is Dana Dow, 206 East Douglas. I'm here today to, I don't know, I guess, question this body as far as the ordinances of the village. I had a neighbor's tree dead, albeit I found out after the fact he knew the tree was dead, refused to take it down. And when I informed him that 10 days after I moved in, the limbs from the tree impaled my house. And so of course had to, that was December of 2021, had to get that fixed. And after the fact, I did write a letter to the village. Joe's got that letter. Asking, because I did some research, found out there is a dead tree ordinance where you could ask the homeowners, the village, that is to say, could ask the homeowner to cut the tree down. And if they refused at their, what would be their expense, the village would come in, take care of the tree, and then bill them and pay, it'll be on the property. Apparently that's how it works. But the response I got was, village doesn't get involved. We don't have the resources. We're not gonna basically enforce that ordinance. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not only disappointed because it just seems unfair that we have a law on the books, or ordinance, sorry, I'm calling law, ordinance on the books, but yet we're not going to enforce it. Unfortunately for me, that meant that that same dead tree that he refused to remove, and of course I can't remove it because it's on his property. For a second year in a row, had that same tree, different limbs, different storm, impale my roof yet again. So now I have yet to fix it. We just finally, because I had to hire a lawyer to get this neighbor to cut down their tree, finally it did happen. But I am frustrated with the village because I brought it to the village's attention. There's a law in the books. It should have been, enforced. I'm wondering, and if it's not, at least at this point, I'm thankful the tree has been cut down. However, With a lot of money out of pocket, I'm just wondering for the person behind me or who comes after me. And that same issue has happened, again, there's a law in the books, what's gonna happen for them?
I just got the information in front of me just now, so maybe I had a chance to read over all the notes and stuff, but. I know in the past, I've been the one here that's been on the board the longest. I'm not gonna say how long, actually, now everybody's been here since 2004, long time. Anyway, we've had that come up before in the past too, and most normally are in the past have tried to stay out of neighborly disputes and including unfortunately with some of these tree issues. And I understand your frustrations with the ordinance. If we have ordinances, it is hard for sometimes to handle all of the ordinances of these, because we could do letters, and Mark might be able to answer this a little more clearly, but sometimes when we send out our ordinance letters, and if they get ignored, then we have to be ready to do something further with that. And that does become a little more expensive, and a little more involved with the village. So, Mark, do you have a better explanation on why we don't apply all of our ordinances or get involved in some of the neighborly disputes with some of these ordinances?
Sure, I mean, the village has limited resources, so it can't enforce every law to the T. And it has to prioritize what the most important things are and allocate those resources accordingly, which is why you can drive through any given village and you'll see some pretty rough nuisance properties. And those are usually the ones that the resources get focused on, because you've got houses that need to be taken down and refrigerators left open in yards and things like that. So it's pretty common for communities to prioritize things that way when they're doing their or figuring out what to do with the funds that they've got. Certainly that isn't something that makes you feel better, but that's what these folks try to do when they're balancing all these things.
I understand that, absolutely I do. I think that it would have been great if the village would have at least simply sent a letter saying, hey, we have a village, we have an ordinance on the books, you need to take care of this tree. Just doesn't say, hey, you're the homeowner, you are responsible for, if you know this tree is dead. Thankfully, there was no bodily injury, but that very well could have happened. The largest limb was about this big and went through my bedroom roof. So I'm thankful there was none, but it very well could have been. I have a low pitch, and so unfortunately it could have. I'm thankful it didn't. But I just hope to prevent this from happening to somebody else again, because it could have been very easy to spend, 10, maybe 15 minutes writing, having a form letter or writing it. I'm sure there's possibly a form letter, but to remind homeowners, hey, you know what? Take care of this, because if you don't, you're going to be then responsible for, you'll be open to litigation or whatever else, open yourself to, possible repercussions.
And I'm not opposed to us sending out a reminder, even on the Facebook page, reminding neighbors that, hey, if you do have dead trees in your yard, it is your responsibility to deal with them before it does cause damage to a neighbor's, or heaven forbid it would hit somebody. The Widowmakers, I know after the storm that we had in June, it'd be very hazardous to a lot of people. So I'm not opposed to for us to even put out a friendly reminder to the people in the community that, hey, if you do have trees that are at risk, it is your responsibility, because you could leave yourself open for litigation if it falls on your neighbor's house, or heaven forbid harm someone in your neighborhood or something too. So Joe, do you have a problem with, we can put a reminder out on our village little Facebook page, or even a reminder on our webpage, reminding people that dead trees are your responsibility, especially after the storm? I know there's still some hanging loose out there. I notice on my walks too, that there's some that are not being addressed, but
I got a question for Barb.
Yes, sir.
In her circumstances, and I know a lot of them, when a tree falls, the insurance process like an act of God, but when she had what happened the day before, or the year before, and the same tree, and it wasn't checked, would she have recourse by virtue of the insurance company or something, because a neighbor didn't do his due diligence?
Well, I would not be able to comment on her particular circumstance, but I will speak hypothetically.
Okay,
So if I've got a tree on my property that falls onto my neighbor's house after a storm, that's clearly an act of God, and I have no liability for that. I have a very sick tree in my yard that falls during the storm. And I didn't really know about the sickness. Still not my fault, still an act of God. I've got a sick tree that I know about and people have crabbed about it for a while and I really haven't done anything. Comes a gray area, I could probably get some liability. If I have a sick tree and I got ticketed and I'm halfway through the court process and the neighbor's all worried and has all kinds of experts that say it's going to fall over and I've gotten lots of notice, then that gray area gets a lot darker and I can have a lot more liability. If that sick tree had a bunch of branches that fell off one year and then the next year tipped over entirely, then I think you got a lot clearer liability. So that's kind of the spectrum
well,
that
and,
you
and
have.
I agree with you. I mean, I had in that storm, neighbor's tree took out a section of my fence, and I've had that before in years in the past as an act of God. But by virtue of the same tree, every circumstance you give an example of different trees. I don't disagree with that, but with the same tree, with something like that, I mean, I would think the insurance company would be.
Well, they have a right, there's something called subrogation, and they've got a right to step in the homeowner's shoes, take care of the homeowner's claim, and then go after an offending party. The question is whether or not it's cost effective for the insurance company, and that's their claim to make, right? So they're called to make.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just satisfying.
Those are all good questions, and I get it. Been there and done it myself, so I'm very familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it where it's taken out a bunch of tree and there's no report, but by virtue of the same tree, I think it would be extenuating circumstances. I would think in the eyes of a court, if she pursued that, I would think they would look at that. You know, given a year had passed.
Yep.
You know, that's just me.
Yeah.
But
Tammy, everywhere.
Not knowing the history outside of a general reminder, just because of my personal experience, a lot of times. Offenders in these cases are not people who are either paying attention to a Facebook page or taking it to heart that it is directed at them. Is there a reason we don't at least send a letter or at least proceed as far as until we start racking up a fee? To try to encourage people to follow these ordinances, you know, because I'm guessing. This is my question, I guess, here, if we sent a letter and said, hey, your tree is dead, there's an ordinance against this tree being dead. Would that letter have helped Dana possibly? In trying to argue that this is this guy's responsibility, because then he's been notified, he's been made aware his tree was dead, and he can say he wasn't. I mean, I'm not trying to create more work for anybody, but
Right.
I agree, if we have a rule against it.
I totally agree. I thought the same thing. I think it's at least worth a letter to say what we can do, not what we're gonna do, but that say, if you don't cut it down, we have the right to cut it down and put a lien on your property and everything else. I mean, to me, it would at least scare me. You know, if me personally, I'd probably get it taken care of.
You're the type of person that wouldn't have that violation.
Well, true, but I'm just saying, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I do agree that.
I can put out an information, I'll just put out an information thing and just educating people that are responsible and for trees that are on their property. I have concern with putting out loose letters if we're not willing to follow through and actually enforce things. I think that damages your credibility. whenever we do that, so I just think if we put out something factual, just explaining that they're responsible. That's, unless you set policy by what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. So if you don't want to enforce these things and follow through with it, then the most that I'd be comfortable advising for you to do is just to have some type of educational letter, but if you're not willing to follow through, then.
But if it's a letter stating that you can, like, this is the rule, if you don't deal with it, we can do this. I don't think it's saying we are doing this, so it's not promising a follow through. And
I can
then
put
say
some-
after 2 weeks, after 2 months, 3 months, if nothing's been done, then you discuss. Or somebody
That's what I would say
then you
too. I
comes
mean,
back and
saying
says,
it.
hey, they still didn't
I know
do
that you
anything.
don't want to spend the money, but I'll go back to the same thing she's bringing up. If we have an ordinance on the book that says this, then we need to enforce it. And if we're not gonna enforce it, let's get rid of the rule on the book. And just make it, you can do whatever you want to in this town because we're not gonna enforce anything. I just don't think it does any good to have an ordinance. But I do, on the flip side, I also see like we have the stuff about the pools and the fences and nobody ever does what they're supposed to, but then do you just get rid of them? Do you not have any ordinances if you're not gonna, it's the same way with the golf cart thing. We had all these rules about golf carts, but nobody to enforce. Them. So.
So from Mark, from start to finish, what would the villages, if the board decides they want to deal with this, what would it look like?
But this is a done deal. It's done, right? Tree's gone on this.
But
The action is
Yeah.
pretty much down, but I have a second insurance claim that I need to file now. That I've yet to file, I need to do that. But in a second insurance claim for the same tree. In my case, the insurance company, the first time, I let them know, I did actually speak with the arborist. The owner knew the tree was dead, didn't do anything before the first time it fell my roof, unfortunately. So regardless, I would ask, because again, the tree is down at this point, but I'm frustrated with the whole process. So I would ask that either a letter be sent out if someone comes like I did with this kind of issue in future. Like Tammy said, that you're opening yourself up to what the village can do because the ordinance is on the books if you don't take care of it, kind of thing. But I would request that it's something more than just a Facebook post, because a lot of people don't pay attention to Facebook and don't pay attention to social media. So maybe I could request that, the spring when we talk about leaves and brush pickup and all that other kind of thing, that there be a reminder in those printed materials and whatever everywhere that, spring and summer, it's a great time to take care of dead trees, take stock of what's going on on your property and take care of it.
Well, I'm not opposed to reviewing and making some improvements, and this is once again talking and back to what Max and Tim was saying about ordinances and things, and this is something that I know also has come up many times through my career here, but is a better way, easier way to do more enforcement on some of these smaller things without going, all the way to court like we have on some of the bigger issues. There is a couple things that we've tossed around ideas, and that might be a discussion to have coming up here in the future as far as having our own ordinance process through the village, and I know we've sort of touched on that a couple times, but maybe we look into that further as far as what that process would be. And it would be much easier to enforce some of these smaller things. And I said, my thoughts are sometimes is some people that are responsible in our community, you do get a letter and they freak out, oh my gosh, I got a letter, and they immediately address the issue. And that's the hope that you hope would happen with a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people just wad it up and throw it in the trash. And like I said, and then like Joe said, then then it kind of makes us look silly if we don't take the next step or the next step, because, you know, some of those people just continue to wad it up and toss it in the trash.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't we had, I mean, you have people complaining, but the proverbial. And I'll, like your tree there, it said, well, that tree's dead, but don't use my name on the complaint. We need to make sure if there is a complaint, that the person's signatory to that, to make sure that, okay, it's there, we have reviewed it, and that it is correct, and this is something, you know, that you needs attention.
I actually did call the village in May, I don't know when it's,
Yeah.
but in like May of 22. And had somebody from the village come out and assess the tree, and it was, you know, it's clearly dead. So, but nothing happened after
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's hard, I don't know how you can legislate being a good neighbor, but I mean, it's something like that.
Unfortunately for me, my insurance company decided that they couldn't go after him because he claimed anyway that he doesn't have insurance on his property. Which I find crazy. But whatever,
I mean,
it's not to me to do that, but I know for me, I can't run the risk of being uninsurable for multiple claims on the same thing year after year. I can't do that. So again, I'm thankful the trees finally been cut down, but I just don't want this to happen to somebody else in the same kind of circumstance. And then, you know, all this money out and something could have been done. You know, had they gotten the letter, you know, things would have been different. Now I had to hire a lawyer wrote a letter, they finally cut it down. So I'm thankful it's finally down, but obviously that's a lot more money out for me and frustration and, you know.
I mean, what you just bring up a good point is that this is your policy decision, is who you want to pay for the enforcement of these minor. It's not minor to you, it's significant to you because it's your, I'm not trying to diminish your situation. For these civil disputes, and who do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay for it? Do you want, what if it was a fence?
Well, that's, but
You know, so it's your
just
decision.
thinking out loud. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, but why have an ordinance if we're not gonna enforce it? And do you think people sometimes take it and wad it up and throw it away because we don't ever enforce anything? Yeah, they're not gonna do anything. I mean, once we start enforcing these and putting fines in place and actually putting liens on properties, and I know it's expensive, don't look at me like I don't know. I'm just saying, maybe you get your point across eventually. I mean, we'd love to have a nice little neighborhood where everybody does what they're supposed to, but obviously people can't do it.
Well, and like I said, and I think that's where you guys need to decide, do we want to take the next step and have a conversation with Mark on what it would take to set up that process? I know Joe and I have talked about it a couple of times, there's a few other communities that do it, I think Paxton does it now.
Paxton's about to start it.
Yes, because I thought I read there, but maybe we look at a couple of those communities that have set up a process to do that, to be able to apply fines and
I think Muhammad just started it as well. And I think their model would probably be a lot more cost effective if Paxton spent a ton of money.
yeah.
So, I mean, as a group, you all want to learn more about that and then ultimately.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish that, and maybe it was brought, I mean, I wish that I would have at least heard the complaint. I mean, maybe we can't do that. Is there that so many that come in that it's an inconvenience to?
This was back in December. And I did make you all aware of it,
Okay.
and probably, it's been a year,
Okay,
basically, so I mean, it's hard to. And like I said, I'm not trying to diminish your complaint, but we do get
I'm sure.
complaints on a regular basis, and so it's kind of hard to chase everyone up and down. And that's not to me trying to discredit what you're complaining about at all, I totally understand, it's frustrating.
And I apologize for waiting this long to even bring it to your attention because, like I said, I already wrote a letter and, you know, I more or less got a squash, yeah, we're not doing anything. So it's like, okay, don't bother talking to them. Because, you know,
And we are careful to not get in the middle of neighborly disputes as much as we can, just because that's not our job, but But no, I'm open if you guys wanna direct Joe to look at this, like, I know this has been a conversation that we've had a lot over the years, talking about enforcing our ordinances and the best way to do it, and to me, it's, you know, I was always told too, that the biggest thing is, you know, if you set up something like that, you do have to have an ability for those people to plead their case, you know, if for whatever reason they don't feel they're in the wrong, you know, but like I said, we've got a couple other communities out there that are now finally doing it, so these are good examples to maybe look into and potentially go the same direction. If that's what you guys feel like
I'd
it's.
like to see the ordinance first.
And I think that one thing that we have to keep in mind, and some of us are new members here on the board and haven't been here as long as Tammy, and kind of changing things and trying to make things better and pay attention to all the details, and so we are trying. I just want to say that, and we apologize to you for your situation, and you know, there are a lot of things that we've been looking at. There's only just a pot of money. And so deciding where we spend that pot of money and how we do that, and there's only so many resources and people. So we do have to kind of come back to the table, it sounds like, and kind of talk about those things and decide. And, you know, we made decisions of ways that we were going to do things, thinking that we were doing the right thing. We did, thank goodness, we've not had a situation maybe like this. So that's a good thing, unfortunately not for you, but you are helping us to see that we maybe need to come back and revisit this and move forward, so.
Right. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you. All right. Have a good evening.
Me too.
So anyway, so I'll have Joe and Mark kind of look into that and see what's out there, and maybe get us a model example of how that would work. So anyway, any other public comment? No? All right, this will be our second time doing the consent agenda. So in that packet, you have the minute meetings for minute meetings. That sounds redundant, but you have the meeting minutes for August 22nd and also for September the.
But we don't have exec session.
No, do we have a thing?
He has them.
Oh, so we don't have that.
No, I slid them into your door this morning.
Oh, is that okay? All right, I'll grab them for you.
Anyway,
Do you have any questions on the bill? Do you have any questions on the bill?
Yeah, I did have one.
Okay, we can do that now while he's trying to get the
okay.
other.
And then otherwise we will approve all of it together, so.
One of, I know it's on Mike's Medicare, okay, on that. That seems like kind of high for supplemental plan.
It's what it is.
It is what it is, is that for,
That's
It's
what,
usually for like 3 months, though.
well, that's for 3 months?
I think, is it
Yeah.
the one
It's
that
multiple.
shares like for 3 months?
it's multiple months.
Okay. And then, all other, I was gonna ask about what the wheel was, but, all right, that's the only little question I had, the other. Yeah. Oh, one other, on the towing of the truck or rentals, was that included in the insurance bill? I'm just asking for that.
Can you repeat your question?
On page 5. Reynolds Towing, it says. Chevy Silver Tow. Did I assume that was a white one from the wreck, wasn't it?
Yeah. We had to have that towed there, prior to it getting evaluated.
Yeah. Is that something the insurance, was that reimbursed in the insurance?
No,
Okay,
that one wasn't.
okay. I assumed it would be. All right, that's the only question I had.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, is there a motion to approve for the meeting minutes and the bills?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Sally,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Cummings.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes,
Reason why you didn't have the executive session is because
So. We got it.
Joe, the blue one has the right,
Yeah, I got it.
it has the right date at the bottom, the only difference.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, there was no old business, so we will jump on down to new business. First item on that is, we have an ordinance in place, authorizing the loan agreement with the Philo Exchange Bank. This is for, the property, over by the sewer plant and potential, other projects that we unfortunately didn't, things have not completed to have the information in front of you, so we'll go ahead and do the loan agreement, and then if the other project falls through, then we'll just pay that back and no big deal for that, but instead of having it all written and going through this process twice for two separate amounts, we'll just go ahead and do the full amount, and then hopefully at the next meeting, we will have the other information. So,
do we need to state the correction on that?
yes, there is, well, we'll make sure Joe gets corrected, is on the, if you saw on the borrower's page on 19, it didn't have my name, it has someone else's, the president. I said, unless that person wants to sign it and be responsible for the loan, we'd be happy to have him do that, so. But is there any other questions in regard to
Yeah,
that?
there's one, is, are we voting on also the federal tax certificate too, or just the?
You're just approving the whole ordinance and it authorizes all of it.
Okay, well, on page 26, I had a question about qualified equity. And it just says on there, funds not derived from so proceeds of tax exempt financing. What if one of these properties should end up in a TIF? We don't have a TIF, but I mean, is that something that has to be revisited at that time?
I don't have the answer to that.
Okay,
Can you say that again? I was trying to listen, but I wasn't.
okay, it says right here about the funds derived from a TIF. They're not a TIF, but if one of them, anything we should buy should get in a TIF. You know, it doesn't make any difference this one or anything in the future. The verbiage of this could be confusing. Okay, you have funds to pay on it by virtue of a TIF. Is it going to go, is that something that has to be revisited?
I don't understand where the tip comes.
If we had TIF money, as it states here,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it says tax exempt financing. Is that it?
You have your attorney right there, so I.
Just stick me with it. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm more attuned to this than normal, just because I've been dealing with some issues involving this. So the financing that you're getting gets you the cheapest rate, not only because you are a really solid borrower, but it has a backdoor component that assesses the payment to all the property in your town if you don't make the payment. So that's really nice. Then on top of it, anybody collecting the interest from you doesn't have to pay income tax on the interest. And so the document you're looking at is loaded with stuff that complies with what the feds need, make it tax-free, and to make sure that they get paid back.
I guess
Now,
I'm reading more into it then, because I'm thinking about if it was utilizing a TIF, even though it's tax exempt, I'm thinking about if there was a TIF and.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay,
So let's pretend that,
let's pretend I didn't bring it up and move along. How's that?
well, no, you got me going. This is my world. Come on, this is what I do.
Okay,
I would just briefly say what'll happen is if, when you get put into a TIF, it's put into a TIF, and this wouldn't affect it. That's the short answer.
okay. So I just read more into
So we
it.
just need a motion to approve. Yep, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Second.
Painter,
Yeah.
Cummings,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes,
Valley, yes, Cora,
All right, the second item is your first reading of we're making a budget appropriation amendment. It's, Joe had its exhibit number 6. Basically, we don't really need any approval on, we have it in your packet for you to review. Jody,
I'm trying to give you plenty of time to have the information in front of you, so if you have any questions, you can ask me, but I fully intend to have something prepared for you to make it official in October. So,
Joe and I gone over it fairly thoroughly, so we think we've got it all figured out. We had a couple things pop up that we were unaware of, and I think Joe mentioned it in your meeting packet, in reference to the IUPA loan, on how those payments were to be made was a little bit different than what we were told previously. So of course, with that being said, since the money will actually be coming out of our office, then of course we have to appropriate for it, even though we're getting the money reimbursed to us from the loan from the IPA. But anyway, so a couple of those things popped up, and we just, after reviewing a few things, made some adjustments, and so that's why we're amending the appropriation. So
if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me anytime.
third item is resolution of support of the Safe Routes to School grant application. Now, the resolution, basically, that's just a formal approval, so that we've already agreed that we're doing the Safe Routes to School grant. So this is just part of the process of making sure the resolution is done, so that that can be added to the grant packet.
Just need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Max and Rapp.
Yeah.
Cummings,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Valley,
Yes,
Painter,
Yes.
Oro.
Okay, item number 4 is, I asked Joe just to put this up for discussion. We had our invoice from the Champaign County Visitors Bureau, which is no longer called the Champaign County Visitors Bureau. They changed it to Experience Champaign-Urbana. So that happened through the summer, and my understanding, because I was first a little fussy about that, because I'm like, well, that kind of excludes us in the county. You know, where before in the title, it kind of lumped us all in together, and, you know, we were members of that, and, you know, we donated to the cause, even though it was a much smaller donation than Champaign-Urbana and some of the large communities. So I think we were bronze members or whatever, but anyway, by changing the name, I personally, I mean, I know the newspaper asked me what my thoughts were, because it kind of came out of nowhere. When they did that, we wasn't notified at all that, hey, by the way, we're thinking about changing the name. And, you know, my first thoughts was, gosh, you know, once again, you know, Champaign County is, you know, everything's about Champaign-Urbana again, you know, so supposedly they're not changing their format, that we would still be included and try to include us in whatever activities that would somehow we would benefit from being a members, I guess. And part of that is, unfortunately, I don't think we've ever taken full advantage of our membership anyway, as far as putting our events and things in their magazine or their monthly they have a little email blurb that they put out with events and stuff. And unfortunately, I don't think we've used that as much as we could have. But I just wanted to put it's our donation, or our contribution is $700 for the year. I think it's a great program. Champaign-Urbana, I know, gets a lot of great benefit from it, from the programs that they bring into Champaign-Urbana. Even though it's a small amount of $700, I guess I wanted to bring it up for you guys' discussion, to decide what your feelings are with that being the name change and everything. Do you still feel like it's a good contribution on our part, even though it's $700 to be a part of that? And, you know, if the name change doesn't bother you, you know, we continue to to be a part of it to the extent that we have been. You know, I do feel like whatever activities go on in Champaign-Urbana, as far as tourism, I think, you know, we can benefit from it because we're on the outskirts of Champaign-Urbana. Naturally, you know, some of those tours and things that come into Champaign-Urbana will, you know, occasionally come and venture their way out here. I know the winery advertises sometimes in their magazines. You know, so people want to venture outside of Champaign-Urbana, they might come to the village. Plus the trail, you know, brings a lot of people. If there's a activity that would include the trail to highlight the village, but anyway, you guys just need to decide if you feel the benefit is still there. It's $700, so it's not a lot of money. But I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to discuss that. I'm not sure if any of you were aware of the name change for the organization and how you felt about that. So
I'm not thrilled about the name change, but that being said, I think it's money well spent. Spent the community, it's going to be interesting to see what other communities, if they support it or not, and I make a motion.
It'd be nice to ask some of the other communities that if they've done it in the past, are they gonna continue to do it or whatever? I mean,
I'd
to
say,
me, I'm not for sure what benefit we get, and I just don't know how many people venture out to come eat in St. Joe and when they're in Champaign. Now, if we had a hotel that housed some people, you know, when they're full in Champaign, I'd feel a little bit different about it. but-
some of the restaurants got some award in the magazine, but
I think Wheelhouse has gotten some
Yeah.
acknowledgements through their magazine and stuff. Cause I think they've been a part of, I think in January do a Champaign County.
they were both best
Restaurant
restaurants
week
or
or
something like
something
that,
like
those different things, so I think. We don't get a lot, we get some for no more than it costs. I'd make a motion to approve.
Doesn't she come and,
She'll be here next
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
yes, you can ask her questions when she comes.
And that's,
Have you seen, have they normally, have they like officially announced that? Because I mean, like I follow that stuff and I don't feel like I saw anything.
they did it, their big banquet that they had this summer where they have some award winners of different things. And I didn't get to that this year. But that's where they announced it. So yeah, it kind of surprised everybody, I think. Because that's what the newspaper got a hold of me the day after, because everybody's like, what the heck, what just happened here? So it seemed like it was kind of, you know, quiet about it until they announced it at their event.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it's accepted, because some of the contributors, if I remember right, Monticello was a contributor. And you got some of them outside the county, so I'd still, like I said, I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve it.
Okay, well, that's why I just wanted to bring it up to you guys, because I didn't know for sure if any of you guys were aware of it, even if it's a small amount. We've been, you know, part of it for, you know, quite a while, members of it.
So the primary benefit to the community is that it's advertised in their.
We're listed as a-
magazine.
Yeah, they have like and they have their website and stuff, so they have a lot of visitors come into the community. I think go to them and look for various places to eat, places to stay, what you know, what's going on, yeah, things to do, you know, on particular weekends or certain.
And even though it's now called Champaign-Urbana, they're still gonna be listing.
Yes, I mean, we can still list our things, and that's where, you know, we should do a better, if we're gonna stay members, and we should do a better job when we do have events. To give them notice so that they can put the blurb out along with their other announcements and things, so. Grant, we've never managed to make it on their big front page. Advertisings, but we have had a couple of our things included in you know, some of their other things that they put out, so.
And she's coming next time to present and she'll be here and she's very good at answering questions. And things,
Yeah,
so we can
she-
have
I
a
know, we'll be
conversation with her.
And I'm sure they're probably getting this question from other communities, so, but unless it's just all blown over and everybody's like, oh, well, whatever, so. Anyway,
We have a
so if
motion
you
on
guys
the
are good
floor.
with that,
It doesn't need a motion. She just wanted direction.
yeah. So, yeah, we don't really need a motion to pay the invoice.
We'll just.
Yeah, so, Okay, Joe, do you have anything to add besides your staff report?
Yeah, I have good news. Back in May 2021, you set us on a path to do the Elm Street and Douglas Street project, and that's been well underway. With your acquisition of the property north of the sewer plant, that significantly helped the design to the tune of saving roughly $500,000. So in a sense, you largely paid for itself with that. So I just wanted to share that. That's a good news, but also that Clark Dietz will be here at the second meeting in October to give an overview of that project, as well as to go over a few other proposals that I'll have for you then. But other than that, my report, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Mark,
You have my report. I'm here to answer any questions.
right? Says nothing, so still everything is nothing, then we'll move on to Tiffany.
Same.
Public Works has their report in your packet, so they did a good job of putting information in there, so please review that. I really don't have any updates. I was the only thing I am planning on doing the costume parade thing on October 28th. The 1st of October, we will also, for that first meeting, we will do our proclamation for trick or treating, which most likely, we always do that on October 31st. So, but we'll do that the first meeting in October. And other than that, I really don't have anything off the top of my head that I can think of. I will now ask the Board of Trustees. I know Art and Max went to the conference along with Joe. If you wanted to give a brief summary of anything that you attended there, I will turn it over to you guys unless there's another trustee that has something else to add.
Go ahead on the main one that we've been.
Well, we did, which you guys are gonna love to hear, but we did stop by a solar place, and their recommendation was to buy it. And they actually have a consulting thing that we got their info, and if the board will allow, I would love to have them give their assessment of buying versus what we're looking at doing before we finalize that. They said that probably 2 to 3 years ago, they would have told you to do exactly what you guys voted to do, but they said now with the federal kicking in their money, that it would be paid for in 4 to 6 years. And that I was kind of going over the stuff that guy had in there for the $7,000 maintenance. They agreed with us that there is no maintenance to be had, and that you can buy a 20-year warranty on the inverters, so you don't have to worry about the cost of those coming up and getting you. But I mean, my rough figures is it's going to cost us $100,000 because all the incentive money is going to be $1 million, and I think it can be done for $1.1 million. So
They are putting on a presentation for the Vanna Park District on
October 3rd.
October 3rd, Tuesday, October 3rd at 6:30 at the Park District. And the way I gathered from him, they were looking at the Park District and planning on purchasing. I don't think there's any lease. I don't know where it's located or anything.
Yeah, they just said that it's not.
So the dynamic change.
Yeah, it's changed, and that's not what they'd recommend. And even being close, I think that that's most other places, and we qualify for an extra 10% because of our location. So.
Did you guys bring that information back?
I brought they're going to put on a presentation for us to set it up. I'm gonna go over here what they say on the 3rd for the Vanna Park District. And then just listen to what they had to say, but they talked to Max, what, were you over there when they talked this, but the different things. The main thing that extrapolated out of the conversation was that the dynamics had changed a lot, and they said before they would recommend that, they said now it's more advantageous, and they talked about additional funding that, but anyway, it's worth exploring.
Yeah,
So-
I would say if you guys are open to it, I think that we should, I think that we kind of jumped into it without, hearing the other side, and I would love for you to hear the other side. And if you still feel that way, then that's the case, but I don't.
I think you just go in with your eyes open, your ear and listen and see, and if we don't, we'll look at least, but the things that
Not
I agree with,
each member.
okay, PPA, okay. But,
It's sold.
If you all want, I can solicit a proposal from this firm. And we can get it reviewed and then I can have it, you can set a date of, maybe the first meeting in November to have it all finalized and. This should give them plenty of time to give us a proposal. What I just don't want somebody just to come in here to give a presentation about like their numbers and stuff, so they can be reviewed ahead of time and.
one specific question I asked him, and that was the code, the floodplain. And I asked him, I said, so how would you get it? And he said, the code requires 2 feet above the 100-year flood stage. That's how high the panels would be. So, and that's the first time, I mean, that's what he said. He said it could vary in your area, but these different things, what they look into before they do it, which I thought was kind of interesting, so.
So if you all are okay with it, I can solicit a proposal with, you all having an idea in your mind of trying to get this buttoned up by the first meeting in November. I think it should give us a good amount of time, to review everything and then you all will be able to make a decision by that point. Does that sound, because I could probably still get you on the schedule for next summer if you can make a decision at that. At that meeting,
That, the 14th.
the 14th, yeah. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, it might be in that way. We'll also, you'll have the, if you got opportunity presents itself, you want to go listen to the park district, you hear the same people we talk to. As far as the rest of that, I mentioned to you about who the host speaker was for the opening ceremonies. Don Brazil attended, I don't know, seminars, and I don't know how many different ones. It was interesting that I happened to just by chance in one of them, when they were talking about growing your community, that I was that he corrected the presenters that he was with a major company, and that he said, you missed, remind me of Rodney Dangerfield back to school. So, oh, no, you missed a whole bunch of it. And then he kind of interjected, and so I had asked him a couple of questions. I said, you're going to be besieged, so answer this before you get overwhelmed here. And he told me a few things to look at, but it always invokes a thought when I go to these. You look at that, and I had several things and still gathering my thoughts, putting them together. But it's always worthwhile.
I think so too, yeah, I think it's very important.
Thank you for both for going. So I did realize I actually did have a couple things, sorry. Just to let you guys to be aware of that Champaign County also got a letter from John Hall to the county board with the zoning. They're back at, we had protested a while back when because the governor made some major changes that would infiltrate our ETJ, our extraterritorial jurisdiction. And that would basically mean we had absolutely no say so on solar or wind that would come within our 1.5 miles. That was a big deal because that was given to us by law many years ago, that you have jurisdiction over your 1.5 miles. And the governor, with his green energy things that he's promoting, basically took that away from us. And so county was trying to change all their rules to for most of them on the county board, they were like, yippee-yi-yay. because that's what they've been wanting to do all along. So, but all the surrounding smaller communities, several of us put together a protest and presented that. Well, it did slow things up because then it makes them have to go through a whole long process. Well, they're notifying us that, you know, because of the law, you know, they just can't do it. Anyway, I'm not sure where it will go, but I know I have a meeting early Monday morning with several other mayors discussing what might be our next step with this. So Mark, you might be asked to help with maybe another protest of some sort, but
Oh, yeah.
anyway, so I'll have that meeting Monday morning with them to see what the game plan is with some of the other mayors, so.
I think as another mayor and outline to me, if they don't respect the boundaries, this would be something. I don't really want to do it, but you should entertain annexing this area, take that out of the equation. Different areas, if they can't go ahead and respect your 1.5 mile boundary, then look at annexing everything in within mile.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know where the meeting will be, but anyway, and one last thing I forgot, clear back from our festival. There was a group that performed there, the festival was called the Black Tiger Honor Guard. Anyway, they presented us a very nice thing for allowing us to be at the festival. So I forgot to bring that up, and I had stuck it in my desk, and I was like, oh, darn it, I forgot to bring that forward, but it was real nice. They presented it to me there at the ceremony. I thought it was a wonderful, very emotional, touching ceremony for our veterans in the community. I know my father-in-law, who's 97 years old, he got a very nice recognition too, being a World War II veteran, and there was several other veterans and their families there that was honored. But anyway, so we have this, and so we'll probably hang it someplace nice here in the village. So I will give that to Joe, but I just wanted everybody to be aware of it. It was a great program. So I never attended any of their things before, but it was very touching. So anyway, so that's all that I have here. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
One second.
Right.